unto us all things that pertain to life and godliness, through the knowledge of him that has called us to glory and virtue. We are given unto us exceeding great and precious promises, that by these we may be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. And besides this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance, and to temperance patience, and to patience godliness, and to godliness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness charity. For if these things be in you and abound, they make you that you shall neither be barren nor unfruitful in the knowledge of our Lord Jesus. I wanted to share for a few moments on virtues and vices. I understand that this period is the period of the budget debate, and budgets revolve around surpluses and deficits. And this country, like many other countries right now, is suffering from a budget deficit. But I also want to alert you to the fact that we have a virtue deficit. We have a deficit in our country of virtues. I had a conversation recently with a gentleman who's working with COVID relief. And he said to me, we have to shift from dealing with some parents, and we have to try to get aid directly to children. Because some of the parents have so many addictions and so many issues that when you try to help them, they end up gambling it away, or they have a drug addiction or alcohol addiction. I spoke to another gentleman, and he said to me, he's on one of the islands, and the fishermen on this particular island, they go out fishing as is their tradition. And he said, when they come back, the family used to benefit. But now when they come back from fishing, they make a stop at a certain spot before the gambling house, before they reach home. And when they reach home, some of them don't have anything left. And so it just reminded me of the importance of virtues over vices, and that we need to make sure that we have a surplus of virtues. We don't want to have a virtue deficit. And I looked at the dictionary definition of virtues and vices. It says, virtues mean the conformity to a standard of right, a particular moral excellence, a beneficial quality or power of a thing. On the other hand, vices include an immoral or evil habit or practice, an addiction. And so, when I think about the Bahamas and going back to the preamble, the forefathers of this country put some virtues in the preamble that reads as follows. It says, we should have a national commitment to self-discipline, industry, loyalty, unity, and an abiding respect for Christian values and the rule of law. And it just reminded me that we have to be aware not only of our financial deficits, but also the moral deficits that we face, and do everything within our power, individually, collectively, in whatever means we have, to address this particular issue. Amen? Amen. Let's bow our heads together. Father God, we thank you for bringing us here once again, and we thank you for this opportunity to deliberate on the business of the country. We ask for your guidance, your direction, and your wisdom as we proceed. And we trust that everything that we do and say today, it would be beneficial to our citizens of this country. In Jesus' name, Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, power, and glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Good morning, honorable members. Honorable members, when the business of this House suspended, the chair will recognize the honorable member for South Beach as having reserved the floor. The chair now recognizes the honorable member for South Beach.
May it please the Honorable Speaker. Honorable Sir, the grace and peace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with each of us this morning. Mr. Speaker, today is International Women's Day, a time set aside across the globe to not only celebrate the social, cultural, economic, and political achievements of women, but also time for the global community to raise awareness about women's equality and to lobby for gender parity across the various subdivisions of society, and also to assist where we can and must in providing for female-focused charities. The 2021 theme this year, sir, is Choose the Challenge. Challenge, calling the world to challenge and become alert, not only individually, but globally, that we are today, and all of us, responsible for our own thoughts and actions, not only today, but every day. And we can all choose to challenge and call out gender bias, inequality. We can choose to seek out and celebrate women's achievements. Collectively, we can help to create a more inclusive world. Because, sir, from challenge comes change. So let us all choose to challenge. The Speaker, today, I give honor to all females. I honor with blessed memory my own grandmother, Mrs. Lita Lloyd, of late. My own mother, Eltoy Taylor, late, to whom all that I am and have abides in their great counsels. I extend great love and appreciation and respect to my wife, Michelle, to my daughters, Aisha, Kendra, Shiva, and Shakti, and Sanjay, and to my granddaughters, the youngest of which is only 3 months old. I pay respects and honor to the members, female members of this chamber, my female relatives and friends, members of our Ministry of Education, especially members of my office, Mrs. Pierce, Ms. Gator, Ms. Sawyer. I pay a special memory and respect and congratulations and thanks, Mr. Speaker, to our female teachers and administrators and staff members, not only of the Ministry of Education, yes, in particular, the Ministry of Education, the Department of Education, but to the public service as a whole. I honor females everywhere. I give thanks. It is upon the great generosity and graces of the people of South Beach, to whom I pay honor this morning, sir, for the privilege to serve in this Augusta chamber. You know, I never left. I made a promise in 2016-17 when I entered into frontline politics that I would be perpetually available. And I have been. According to the time that I have when I'm on this island, I'm in the community. I'm in my office, headquarters, an office that has been opened every single day of the week, weekdays. Been there every Thursday from 3 o'clock until the last person leaves, providing support, encouragement, inspiration, and help where necessary, and again, according to the availability of resources. Every Saturday, from the day I was elected, sir, I was in that community, walking about. It's a large community, very large. Some 4,000 residential spaces, homes, apartments, and so on. It's a lot. 5,000 plus registered voters. Meeting, sharing, communicating, helping where I'm able. I've invited all to participate. Some have, some haven't, but that's fine. To God in all things be the glory. And as you know, South Beach, I have given my approval for candidacy again to represent your wonderful community, if it is your wish. So I wish to say thank you to South Beach for your continuing support. May I also, Mr. Speaker, please pay respects and extend condolences and sympathies on behalf of our team and the community of South Beach to family Ms. Sophia Liu, Oxford Avenue, who died last week. Mr. Barry Smith, Mr. Rico Mackey, both of South Beach Drive North, who have gone on to their eternal reward. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord, and let light perpetual shine upon them. Mr. Speaker, may I please beg your indulgence that before I provide for this honorable chamber and the Bahamian people a report, the stewardship of the Ministry and the Department of Education with the resources that the Bahamian people have vested in them, I want to begin by showing my appreciation and gratitude. You know, the ministry and the department have operated under extreme pressure for the past 18 months. First, it was Dorian that stretched the creative verve of our ministry by having to accommodate some 2,000 displaced students from Grand Bahama and Abaco, in addition to dozens of teachers and staff members. And as soon as that was near settled, sir, some 5-6 months later, we were hit with the pandemic on March the 15th, COVID-19, resulting in major disruption to our educational operation. Despite this ministry, department, been the object of unending, it seems, criticism, some even bordering on vitriol at times. While we operated with what everybody knew, and all educational systems around the world would have operated in circumstances beyond any reasonable calculation. But you know, sir, not only did we persevere, but by all sensible and intelligent estimation, we thrived. Against near insurmountable odds. The school doors may have closed, but instructions never ended. Budgets may have been cut, but the provision of essential educational services were never compromised. You, sir, by very existence, is grounded in the disposition of gratitude and remembering where I came from. I can only be grateful because I have no other explanation but God, Mr. Speaker. You know, Martha and her sister Mary faced what they thought were insurmountable odds. They had waited for some time for their friend Jesus to come to their home of Bethany. They're some days' way out of Jerusalem. And when he eventually came, he said, Lord, I know that if you were here, my brother would not have died. Jesus said, but I know that he will rise in the resurrection. And Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. John chapter 11, beginning at verse 40. And he also said, didn't I tell you, Martha and Mary, when I was last here, that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So, you know, he told them to take away the stone. And when he did, he looked his eyes to heaven and he gave thanks. It's the same Jesus, the Son of God, who gave thanks in Matthew 14. Again, insurmountable odds the disciples thought that they had faced. When all these people had been with Jesus all day long, they obviously were hungry. They had no money. They had nothing to feed them. But there was a young man with some provisions. And again, he says, bring him to me. Matthew 4. John chapter 6. And again, looking to heaven, he gave thanks. That's the spirit of my life, Mr. Speaker. Because the incredible success, the Ministry of Education and the Department of Education, and in these situations, I lay at the feet of its leaders, to whom I give every ounce of credit, gratitude, and appreciation. Mrs. Lorraine and Bristol. Mrs. Lorraine and Bristol, the permanent secretary, and her team. The woman works from sun up to sundown and even beyond. Incredible talent, energy, focus, discipline, and commitment, dedication. The director, Marcellus Taylor, and his team, again, unequaled commitment, focus, and dedication. What the Bahamian people see as fruits in education, I see behind the scenes, and I see it every day, of painstaking, mentally exhausting hours, arduous work to keep the system going and to thrive. To them, so I owe every bit of gratitude and appreciation. And I thank them because they are the stars in the successful firmament of this ministry and this education. You know, Nelson Mandela once said, Ubuntu, which means I am because of you. God's favor rest upon you, Mrs. Bristol, Mr. Taylor. Please extend my gracious, heartfelt thanks to your team. And may I further beg your indulgence, sir, before I get into the report to this honorable chamber. I begin with a story that was shared by a senior executive of our ministry. And he said to me that one day a group of students were found riding their bicycles on the streets in the neighborhood. The teacher at the school were looking for them because they had not been online. And they went to the home to search them out. When they got there, they found them out in the streets. Asked them why they were not online in class. They gave some flimsy excuse. On further investigation, they found that they had all devices. They had the internet capability at their home. In fact, the bicycles that they were riding were given to them by Urban Renewal during school hours. A member of the community policing team was called, spoke to the mother and told her that if again these children were not found to be in school, she would have to deal with them. Reverend Burroughs just spoke about parents this morning. I highlight this story, sir, because it exemplifies a circumstance found too often in our Bahamian society, and principally in the urban centers of New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Abaco, where many parents seems not to appreciate or understand their critical and indispensable role in the education of their children. They seem to believe, sir, that it is somebody else's job. School, ministry, Department of Education, the government, society, any and everybody except them. We know that COVID has brought seismic changes in education in this country, forcing educational institutions from pre-primary to tertiary levels to have to rethink how they teach by formulating new methods, carrying out the instructional process. This pandemic has also had a disruptive effect on the educational lives of our students, their parents, and their families, and many in the educational field across the globe fear that the crucial loss of learning as a result of this pandemic, especially the students who are most vulnerable, may even be irrecoverable. As we know, because of the pandemic, school closed on March the 15th in the year 2020, immediately transferring instructions online. Because of this pandemic and the late completion of the examinations, national examinations, schools last year opened on October the 5th, approximately 1 month after they are ordinarily scheduled to do so. They opened face-to-face on all islands except New Providence, Grand Bahama, Exuma, Eleuthera, and Abaco. Grand Bahama came back face-to-face shortly thereafter. And as I mentioned in my previous speeches, Mr. Speaker, this pandemic has exposed the challenges in securing equitable access for all Bahamian students, the 47,000 in our public schools, the 20,000 in our private schools. Many students didn't have a device or didn't have the internet or both. And this made, of course, really challenging, difficult times for them and their parents, a difficult and perplexing set of circumstances for them. Of course, the ministry, as our commitment requires, jumped right in. We partnered with our stakeholders, Alive, BTC, immediately inviting them to increase their bandwidth across the system and as well to all of our schools, which they did. Of course, we encouraged our parents, where they could, to purchase devices instead of textbooks, because the device is the most critical need at this time. In the meantime, through the graces and generosity of dozens of corporate citizens, many individuals and families and organizations came to the rescue of the ministry and the students, Mr. Speaker. Through a grand initiative by Leno Services, thousands of devices were donated to the ministry and the various schools for the benefit of deserving and needing students. I will speak about this a little bit later on. Many students are still challenged, which is why in schools across this country, teachers have gone into their own pocket, their own resources, and have provided options and amenities for students, uniform, devices, money, and so on, lunch. I have found in some schools, gratefully, that there are as many as 90% of the students online every day getting their instructions. Sadly, in some other schools, participation is less than 50%. This is not only dangerous for the child, of course it is, but also for society. As many of you know, Pope Francis is today ending his first ever, or any Pope's first ever visit to Iraq. When he arrived last week, he met with the Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, 90 years of age. He is the spiritual leader of the world's Shia Muslims. And in their conversations, they both reaffirmed the sacredness of human life. And it's this sacredness, the sanctity of human life, that forms the buttressing character of this free and democratic nation we call the Bahamas, which is founded as the preamble states on spiritual values. Likewise, sir, it's the guiding and underpinning principle of the ministry and this government. That's why you would hear from time to time the Prime Minister, the Member of Parliament, Kalani, when he makes his speeches, he intersperses his presentations with the term saving lives. It's a noble objective because it's God's life and it is sacred. And it is this sacredness that I speak to our parents today about their children and their own lives. Recognizing that this life is precious, their children's life is precious, and they have the most powerful impact, and to appreciate that they are their children's first teacher. They who have the greatest influence on the way their children view education and its importance in their lives. It comes from their parents. It comes from the home, comes from the community, comes from the neighborhood, comes from the society. We don't understand, appreciate that education is critical. It's the great equalizer. This is nothing to trifle with. But we have to take it seriously. We cannot be investing in name brands, clothes and things and 2,000 iPhones and claim that you don't have money to buy a device or to pay for uniforms or to provide lunch. We see this in our schools on a daily basis. Ask the teachers. Misplaced priorities, primarily by parents. And I congratulate those parents, Mr. Speaker, who take seriously their children's education. My grandmother always used to say, I celebrated her this morning, Leader Lloyd, child, get your learning, because no one can take that from you. I'm proud of those parents who, despite COVID and the many inconveniences and the challenges, the struggles, they've got their jobs, they have to take care of the children and focus on their education and make sure they're online and doing what, especially younger children. Making sure that they secure for themselves a prosperous future by ensuring a certain routine and maintaining their focus, encouraging them and equipping them with the confidence that they need. At the same time, sir, I lament and I have to call out those parents who don't seem to be taking this seriously. The ministry is doing its part. The government is doing its part. The society is doing its part. The corporate and NGO communities are doing their part. The home must do its part. Parents must do their part. There is just no other way. I said this when I first came to this house. Education is everyone's business. No one can fold their metaphorical arms across their chests and take a path. Nobody. Because it impacts everyone. Education. Take a look at the society. And you will see the derelict nature of our circumstances and our lack of achievement as a result of someone thinking that it ain't my responsibility. Now, of course, I speak also to the students, because this is your education, and you must take it seriously. As I just said, what you have up here, no one can take that from you. So get serious. Dr. Picard came to visit me last week. I want to say thanks to my colleague, Minister Enfield, North Abaco. Dr. William Picard is the Bahamas' newest honorary consul to the state of Michigan, the United States of America. And he visited several government officials, the Governor General, Prime Minister, and came to visit us, the Ministry of Education. He's an older man, but he is a very well-off man. He is like the honorable member for Southern Shores, very, very well-resourced. And he said to me, Mr. Speaker, he said that, I said, would you kindly speak into our camera and say something What advice would you give to our students? And he said this. He says, anyone from anywhere can achieve anything as long as they put in the work. Anyone from anywhere can achieve anything as long as they put in the work. Remember the great book by Malcolm Gladwell, The Outliers? Talked about 10,000 hours minimum, which essentially equates somewhere around 10 years. He talked about the Beatles. Many people thought that the Beatles just burst on the scene in 1964. But he went back and showed that the Beatles were playing in Germany in clubs for years before that, with nobody in the audience. And they were hopeless. They were terrible. They were making and perfecting their craft over and over and over. When they burst on the scene, they had already 10 years of experience. Michael Jordan used to talk about shooting 1,000 balls. Remember that? 1,000 shots he took, Mr. Speaker. Michael Jordan. Of course, we see Michael Jordan as if having just burst on the scene at the University of North Carolina. Thousands of hours. Thousands of hours. So, my dear beloved students, you want to be great? Put in the time. Dr. Picard said, Mr. Speaker, that he went to Michigan, University of Michigan, and Ohio State, where he got his master's and his PhD. Imagine this now. And he never went to a football game. Didn't have the time. Because he was in the library having to study. Because the teacher in high school told his parents, don't waste your time with this boy because he is not college material. And because of that, he knew that he had to extend himself more than the other ordinary student. PhD. Multi-billionaire several times over. So my point is, Mr. Speaker, and I speak again to parents, please take this education seriously. Students, take this seriously. I know that the pandemic is an excuse, and it's challenging and difficult. When I was a student, we had to go to the Eastern Public Library on Mackey Street. We used to walk from down at Palmdale Prime, which is now Palmdale Prime. We used to call it Eastern Junior. Come up there. We had to look through the books. Many of you would remember that our parents used to save so that we could get one Encyclopedia Britannica. You remember that? Encyclopedia Britannica. You don't need to do that anymore today. See it right here? The word is in your hand. You don't have to leave home. It's right here. Anything you want to know, you can look. You can learn at any time, anywhere, whatever you need to learn, right here. Not for the games, not to run gossip, not to be sending foolish WhatsApp voice notes and so on and so forth, but to educate and train yourself. Get serious about education. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Now, with your permission, may I please, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, last week.
Honorable member, I must say, I endorse that message. If a man's education is finished, someone said, he is finished. So I endorse your message, Honorable Member for South Beach.
Thank you very much. Well, Mr. Speaker, a few people know that you had a father who didn't take no foolishness. You grew up in Algo like I grew up in Long Island, and you know, we had parents who wasn't playing around. Last week, sir, the Bahamas hosted the meetings of the Technical Advisory Committee of the University of the West Indies. By the way, sir, could you give me back that time? I was just preparing. Every 2 years, we get together, and the permanent secretary and her team visits with the University of the West Indies to discuss the biannual budgets. So every 2 years, but this year, for the very first time, and I'm very proud to say that the Bahamas was the host of the meeting, we discussed the budget for the University of the West Indies. As you know, Mr. Speaker, the Bahamas has been a contributory to the university by way of an annual subvention of several $1 million a year. We do that to support the university as a regional tertiary institution, but we do it because we have hundreds of students who not only have gone through the university, including the member for Kelani, the member for Carmichael, the member for South Andros, but also because we now have many students in the various disciplines, particularly law, medicine, agriculture, and so on. Like everywhere else, COVID has impacted higher education across the globe. Some universities have reduced their staff, some have cut back on disciplines, some have cut back on hours, and despite our country's own budgetary constraints, sir, the government has decided that it cannot afford to reduce the government's funding to the University of the Bahamas or to the University of the West Indies, our flagship university in this region. That is simply not an option. Funding in the amount of $2.1+ million and $15+ million, $15.7 million have been paid to the UE and to the University of the Bahamas, respectively, for subventions in the first half of the 2021 fiscal year. In addition, we have paid out tertiary grants of some $7.3 million and capital funding of $139,152.55. We have never reneged on our subventions, and we have fully supported the students at the University of the West Indies and the University of the Bahamas. In fact, Sir Hilary Beckles, as you know, is the Vice Chancellor, continues to congratulate and thank the Bahamas for not only paying our subvention in full, but by paying it on time. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Education further recognizes that much of our success is undergirded by the strength of the partnerships that we have forged over the years. Partners like the University of the Bahamas and the Bahamas Technical Vocational Institute, BTVI, have played an integral role in the success of our initiative. We rely on the University of the Bahamas to provide the majority of our teachers. And this year, because of COVID-19, the teaching practice sessions with our students and the internal moderation and assessment of these well-trained pre-service teachers had to be conducted virtually. Curriculum officers who conducted the internal moderation assessment commended these pre-service teachers for the excellent execution of their well-planned lessons, their beautiful electronic portfolios, their professionalism, and the ease at which and with which they handled the virtual environment. We are also pleased, sir, with the partnership that we have with the Bahamas Technical Vocational Institute and what they have done, especially with students who are considered underprivileged or in otherwise vocationally or academically challenged. And I would like to speak to that just for a moment. At this moment, sir, subvention payments to BTVI up to the fiscal year 2021, the midterm amount is $3,051,556.50. We know that the draft National Development Plan of 2016 identified a national skills gap as one of the more serious challenges facing this country. In 2019, BTVI, along with the Ministry of Labor and the Organization for Responsible Government, conducted a skills gap survey. And it revealed that some 60% of Bahamian employers have concerns about the skill sets and the quality of prospective employees. And when I say skill sets, I mean both hard and soft skills. It's amazing that we have to teach soft skills today most of us in this chamber learned that on our grandmother's knee. Good morning, good afternoon, thank you, please, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Today, too often we hear, huh? What you say? You talking to me? Young little children, say it again. Little children talking to adults. And what? Yes. In response, because of that skills gap, BTVI immediately revised its curriculum to create short, stackable, flexible, certified courses, virtual opportunities countrywide, dual enrollments for high school students, an emphasis on the application of skills, and to ensure that students, once completing those courses, will have the ability to be certified through Cisco, NCCER, City and Guilds, Microsoft, and many others. Additionally, BTVI developed and delivered ICT college-level courses with industry certification to 400 of our grades 10 to 12 high school students who have completed or are about to complete 12 BTVI courses, and they will do so such that this coming Tuesday, they will now receive some acknowledgement and recognition. Many of these students are reporting early acceptance at Tier 1 universities in the United States and Canada. And in part, these certifications have been received and accepted into those university programs. Additionally, BTVI has partnered with RBC to generate funds for the retention of students. They have adopted software systems to improve math and reading scores. They have secured partnership with the Commonwealth of Learning, COL, to train 30 faculty members on developing and delivering online classes. They have hosted a U.S. Fulbright Scholar with teaching and online expertise. And as mentioned, the National Center for Construction Education and Research, NCCER, provides an initiation course offering, 80 hours of which is general and that's virtual, which would lead eventually, hopefully, to 240 hours of master craftsman in one of the many construction-like disciplines, carpentry, electrical, plumbing, and so on. Credits, as I said, Mr. Speaker, are certified, accepted by universities across the globe, including the United States. For instance, we have partnered with Valencia College, one of the largest community and vocational schools in the United States. Its school is in Orlando. They are our supporting partner. And they have helped us train over 100 trainers in the Bahamas. Plan is, Mr. Speaker, that by December of this year, some 200 Bahamian students will become fully certified as master craftspersons, going a very long way to closing the skills gap in this country. We're also proud to tell you that 90 students have completed the initial core NCCER certification. Those students are in Grand Bahama, Abaco, and, believe it or not, Moores Island. Those students, Mr. Speaker, will be graduating, those 90, this coming Tuesday. Another 200 is now presently in the program, and the plans is to have 600 by August and 1,000 additional by 2021. I am also delighted to inform this honorable House that City and Guilds, how many of you remember that? City and Guilds. City and Guilds just approved a 6-month certificate program in what is called Global Hospitality. And it will feature 4 courses: Introduction to Hospitality, Introduction to Hospitality Management, Introduction to Tourism Marketing, and a certificate in the Introduction to Strategic Tourism Marketing. BTVI is also working on dual enrollment for students in private high schools. And I keep saying dual enrollment, Mr. Speaker. May I just pause for a moment? So if you would just hold the time. Mr. Speaker, I just want to pause to say that dual enrollment means simply this: students in grades 10, 11, and 12 are able to take BTVI certified courses And when they graduate from high school with a high school diploma, at the same time, sir, they will be graduating from BTVI with a diploma and with certification. That is presently going on right now, Mr. Speaker, in some of our high schools. Some 400 of our students are doing this, and now it's being extended to private schools. 3 years ago, some 30% of the BTVI graduates, only 30%, were achieving certification in their various disciplines. Today, it is over 80% of BTVI students who are achieving certifications in their various disciplines. And hopefully, by summer, certainly by the beginning of school next year, BTVI is looking to introduce dual enrollment program in the Family Islands for grades 11 and 12. And again, these would be 5 core certificate courses in workforce preparation in collaboration with the Commonwealth of Learning. And these courses would end up in certification with City and Guilds and at least 2 Cisco. Another very important part of BTVI, and I'm emphasizing BTVI today, sir, is because this institution has shown phenomenal growth in the past 2 years, especially because the government has provided free tuition for all full-time Bahamian students. Free tuition for all full-time Bahamian students. And once completing their programs, they receive industry, not BTVI, not the Bahamas government, industry certification ready for real-time job applications. So it's a remarkable work that Mr. Kevin Baston, the board chair, and Dr. Robert Robertson and his team of Andy Gape and Mr. David are doing at BTVI. And they really need to be commended because, as you know, BTVI is in desperate need of a brand new campus. And they are holding that place together with scotch tape, with band-aids, and so on, and doing a fantastic job in the process. Just to tell you even more, they are planning an accelerated skills program in which a student enters into a 12-week program and where they are introduced in an intensive way to about 5 construction trade courses: carpentry, plumbing, electrical installation, and a couple of others. And it is our intention, sir, that by the end of summer, some 1,500 Bahamian students, males and females, will have completed that accelerated program this year. You will remember I mentioned in the House of Assembly that we had secured a $5 million loan from the Caribbean Development Bank. It's called an enhancement project. It's institutional strengthening, helping to prepare labs for industry standards and so on. That is progressing extremely well. We, of course, as a result of COVID, we have had to, and we intend to restructure the program and to take things out that are not necessary at this time and to add things in that are necessary. And that is going very well. They have, as a part of that, they have hired 2 Bahamian project managers who are helping to steer that program. So I'm very proud of BTVI. Their enrollment has jumped from over 4,500 to now well over 6,000 as a result of the government's initiative in providing free tuition to BTVI. The University of the Bahamas is also, Mr. Speaker, one of those institutions where the government has made a commitment. And this is a commitment in the government's plan as a free national movement to provide access to quality tertiary education. Now today, free tuition for all qualified Bahamian full-time students at the University of the Bahamas. Free tuition. First time in the history of this country. Students going to the university or the college or whatever you want to call it, now today can go there without not having to pay $1 for their tuition. Not only that, Mr. Speaker, housing allowance is provided for all Family Island residents to the tune of $500 every single month payable to the landlord. This government You hear people talk about not caring. If this is an example of care, I don't know what is, but I accept and understand that the dictionary they studied wasn't the Oxford or the Webster, but it was one that they had concocted from at the University of Bahamas. I'm proud of Dr. Rodney Smith and his team. On a dime, they went from 100% face-to-face to over 90% virtual, on a dime. In the process, they established a COVID-19 task force, co-chaired by Dr. Marcellus Elliott Ferguson, Vice President, Administrative Services, and Mr. Ronnie Stevenson, Vice President, Operations, to ensure that every aspect of UB's operations during this pandemic adheres to the emergency orders and allows for safe operations on campus for those who must be on campus. When I say over 90%, there are some disciplines where obviously you cannot do it virtually, sir. You know, hospitality, for instance, is one of them when you're talking about cooking. It's kind of difficult to do that virtually. And you can learn and study the theory all you want, but you have to be able to put the egg in the pot and boil it. For the fall of 2020, there had been a decrease in enrollment. Unique enrolled students, however, increased by 4% to 5,254. UB did not retain this number because there were two major deregistration cycles. The university's yield rate for new admitted students rose to 62% from 61% last year. And pre-deregistration, this figure stood at 72%. There were 2,252 new student applicants, of which 1,598 were admitted. The government grant last semester was three for students with 3,520 students, and for this semester, meaning 2021, 3,590 students. The university's communications team responded by setting up a web page called COVID-19 Response and Update, where constituents can find information about the university's response to the pandemic, policies, government updates, and other resources. During this pandemic, both academic freedom and shared governance have been essential to UB's ability to pivot and remain a functioning tertiary level institution. Essential to all of UB's successes is the faculty and staff who took on so many other duties and responsibilities. They have been using the innovative use of technology, working enthusiastically with students and making sure that the high quality of education for which UB is renowned is delivered in a timely and an accurate fashion. Today, in its full second semester, UB is still using the virtual online modality because 10% of its classes are taught face-to-face with strict COVID-19 protocols in place. Those classes include culinary arts and tourism studies, physical education classes, and nursing practicums. The University's Senate, Academic Senate, led by Dr. Faith Butler, has reviewed and approved several new or expanded degree programs, including a Master's of Business with concentration in accounting, leadership, financial decision-making, entrepreneurship and innovation, hospitality management, and events management. There's also a graduate certificate and graduate diploma in public administration, and a BA in liberal arts at the UB North Campus. And the Senate has just approved a pre-pharmacy program. I believe, Mr. Speaker, you will be hearing about UB's first doctorate degree program very soon. I want to speak about research at UB because as a university, that's the linchpin of your status. University, you have to create knowledge. Comprehensive case study, the response of University of the Bahamas to the COVID-19 pandemic, has also been drafted to scientifically look at all of the changes that have happened over the last year. While the study examines all aspects of the university operation, of particular interest is the aspect of online teaching on student success. I personally look very much forward to seeing the final case study of this research. In addition, UB has been diligently applying for and has been awarded research grants. There are currently approximately 12 ongoing grants totaling some $1,236,537.28 in revenue for the university. During this pandemic, again, sir, the university was one of 6 tertiary institutions globally to have won the Ellucian 2020 Impact Award this past September. Ellucian Banner is the world's most advanced data management system and is used by colleges and universities in over 50 countries around the globe. Just this past week, the university released a communication regarding the gradual return to campus, adhering to strict COVID-19 protocols. Over the next several weeks, more offices will be manned using shifts, thus allowing for a limited degree of face-to-face services. Already, the business office, the administrative services, records, admissions, etc., and several computer labs are open for student use. The university will continue the rest of the spring semester in an emergency remote teaching mode. However, there will be increased use of campus activities. As I indicated earlier, so tuition is free at the University of the Bahamas and BTVI for qualified Bahamian students. However, one of the COVID-19's unfortunate effects was that the Ministry of Education was forced to make the tough decision to place a moratorium on all new international scholarships for the 2020-2021 scholarship cycle. That moratorium has now been lifted, I am proud to say, Mr. Speaker, for the 21-22 school year. And I am pleased to report that approval was granted by Cabinet to award funding for new awards to local tertiary institutions. And as a result, some 65 students qualify for tuition assistance to attend those local institutions certified. Let me be clear, Mr. Speaker, with regard to existing students, scholarship commitments is fixed and is determined based on the contracts of those students, and they will be honored. They have no fear. Now, Mr. Speaker, as you know, sir, the Ministry of Education has 5 key priority areas that I highlight here for us today. Members of the media, just for your benefit. Those are the areas. Universal pre-primary education, 3rd grade literacy, that's the GLAP, Bahamas High School diploma, school modernization, and the digital evolution. I want to begin, sir, with the preschool program. Major success in this country. I draw your attention, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, to a 2014 publication of the Inter-American Development Bank. And here's what it says, and I quote, "Development in early childhood casts a long shadow. Long-term panels show that the benefits of early investments can be seen all the way into adulthood. In one study from Jamaica, children who benefited from a parenting intervention in the first 2 years of their life earned wages in adulthood that were 25% higher than comparable children who had not participated. Children who had received the parenting intervention were also less likely to be engaged in criminal activities in early adulthood. Credible evidence from a number of sources reveals that children with deficits in nutrition, cognition, language, motor, and socio-emotional development early on are less likely to learn in school, are more likely to engage in risky behaviors that result in early pregnancy, school dropout, and violence in adolescence, and are less likely to become productive adults." End quote. As was mentioned many times, one of the major initiatives of this ministry and this government has been to achieve universal pre-primary education by the year 2025, pre-private. According to the last census, there were some 12,000 children in the Bahamas between the ages of 3 and 4. And I purposely use the word children, Mr. Speaker, because I hear the term kids quite often. I know it's an American term, but kids, goats have kids. And I cringe emotionally when I hear adults refer to children as kids. I'm really disturbed by that. I try to correct it respectfully, charitably, and I can. Goats have kids. Sheep have lamb. Elephants have whatever you call them, baby elephant. Dogs have puppies. You know, cats have kittens. Humans have children, not kids. Well, if you struggle like my family did from Long Island, you say children. But you get the point. So I certainly, in our educational sphere, please, don't refer to them as any kids. They're not kids, they're children. Parents, you don't have 4 kids. You have 4 children. Anyhow, Mr. Speaker, what I respectfully, sir, and I ask this most respectfully, each time I do that little diversion, if I could get the minute back, sir, I'd appreciate it. Like the IDB report stated, sir, development in early childhood casts a long shadow. It impacts the child's readiness for regular school, their likelihood of graduation, and their long-term success. I'm proud of Mrs. Archer and her team at the Preschool Council. They do a phenomenal job. Mrs. Leisha Burrows, who works in the ministry as an assistant director. Phenomenal work. Because we, the Preschool and the Daycare Council, since its inception of COVID-19, partnered on a daily basis with all concerned government agencies and civic organizations with the gift of virtual platforms. All owners and operators of daycare and preschool centers throughout the Bahamas pertaining to the care and education of their children. As a result, the following activities were achieved and in some cases are being continued. Number 1, regular meetings with the daycare and preschool operators to explain to them what the emergency orders mean. Number 2, training sessions for those operators with the Department of Environmental Health pertaining to protocol rules. Number 3, collaboration with our ministry through the permanent secretary and the team at NACOF pertaining to the reopening of preschools, primary schools, and high schools. We assisted. Number 4, private preschools with the registration procedures to enable face-to-face learning. Number 5, partnered with private sector and the Ministry of Education's early childhood section to enable underprivileged, this is very important, to enable underprivileged children to be able to attend a quality of government-approved preschool. So where cases where we did not have spaces in the government preschool, we enabled through this government the voucher system, paying a $2,000 per voucher for parents to send their child to an approved, government-approved preschool in their neighborhood. And we have done that to the tune, Mr. Speaker, now of almost 4,000 students. In addition, Mrs. Archer and her team produced policy documents along with the guidance of the ministry for the reopening of preschools in collaboration with the Ministry of Health, the Department of Environment Health, and the Public Health Department. Number 8, we presently are partnering with the Prime Minister's Delivery Unit and the Ministry of Education's Preschool Early Childhood Section in the initiative for access to Crown land for daycare and preschool owners. Despite the challenges brought on by this pandemic, we are forging ahead with ensuring that there is equity in the learning environment in our society. In order to facilitate this among our children, back in November of 2020, this government, through the Access Accelerator Small Business Development Center, presented monetary grants to qualified preschool owners. Goal of the grants was to increase the number of privately owned preschools and by extension, increase the amount of seats available for preschoolers to enable the government to meet its targets of universal preschool education. Operators used the funds to open new preschool, to expand an existing one or improve the standards of an existing one, particularly in neighborhoods, which are fast growing. Mr. Speaker, $1 million was earmarked for this preschool grant project. And back in November, the government distributed almost $800,000 to some 36 preschools. The maximum grant funding was $25,000, and the grants range from $12,500 to $25,000. Through again the efforts of the Preschool Council under the leadership of Mrs. Arch and her team, and again, Ministry of Education, the Ministry's Universal Pre-Primary Education Voucher Program, launched in 2018, has resulted in significant and consistent increase in the amount of 3- and 4-year-olds enrolled in the pre-primary program in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Very, very proud. Today, there are now 1,500 additional vouchers. And of that amount, we have already distributed between July of last year and December of last year, some 929 vouchers to 59 privately owned preschools. Cost of those vouchers, Mr. Speaker, the vouchers, how much almost $1 million. Almost $1 million gone into small businesses, private preschools, for the benefit of our people. Also last year, oh yes, the balance of the vouchers, 571, will be distributed to registered private-owned preschools who make application and have been vetted and have met qualifications outlined by relevant regulatory bodies. Also in July, the ministry released new guidelines for preschool operation, inclusive of measures provided by the public health authorities and the Environmental Health Sanitation Department. Private preschools and daycare centers registered under the Act were permitted to start with the registration of students during this time. I speak now about technology. As you know, Mr. Speaker, digitization is a very dominant feature of our educational system. In my first presentation in this Honorable House, made the commitment that the government's intention was to digitize completely and fully, comprehensively, the educational system of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And while this invisible enemy called COVID-19 has halted activity globally, it has failed to stop our efforts to continue educating our young people. The ministry, from the onset of this pandemic, has sought innovative avenues to create multiple streams of learning and instructional environment. Leading this charge is the Technology Division, with a mandate to implement and upgrade technologies in all of our schools. Technology, sir, is not an option. It is not a mere enhancement in instruction. It is a necessity, indispensable. We cannot do without it. This technological revolution and evolution ensures equitable, inclusive, and quality education for all, while promoting lifelong learning opportunities to students to reach their maximum potential. Despite the forceful impact of Hurricane Dorian and the pandemic, thus resulting in fiscal restructure, the Ministry of Education was still able to make significant achievements. During the past year, the Department of Education's virtual school has expanded to accommodate more teachers. And to this end, work was completed to accommodate a March 1st, 2020 occupancy on new premises for the virtual school. Also in 2020, a company called One on One out of Jamaica, an affiliate of BTC, was engaged to provide interim learning management system, LMS, for students and teachers who are engaged in the virtual learning environment. Later in 2020, Cable Bahamas channels 295 and 296 were launched to aid in the teaching and learning process, which meant that students who were not privy to internet access or connectivity were able to receive their lessons daily. Additionally, the channels also provided content for students who were preparing for national exams. Mr. Speaker, as the pandemic grew on the theme, it became patently clear that students without devices or internet were going to suffer possible irreparable educational harm. Consequently, in mid-2020, the ministry purchased 10,880 devices at a cost of over $1.3 million, primarily for students on the lunch program, those with disabilities, or those from low-income families. Now you can clap. Up to that point, the Department of Education had already been distributing tablets for primary school students, while it continued this during the pandemic. In September, we were able to continue with the procurement exercise for those primary school students with a view to provide a tablet for every primary school student and a laptop for every teacher in the primary system during this academic year at a cost of $2.8 million. Happy to report to you today, sir, that all primary districts in New Providence have received their devices and distribution continues in the Family Island. The end of 2020-2021 school year, the ministry pledged that no child will be left, at the start of the 2020-21 school year. Let me put my glasses back on. The ministry pledged that no child will be left behind and committed with the help of its stakeholders and partners to ensure that every public school student who needed a device will get one. That was our commitment. That was our pledge. Consequently, so in September of 2020, the ministry forged a partnership with Leno and Corporate Bahamas, Leno Services and Corporate Bahamas, to assist the Ministry of Education providing tablets and internet connectivity for our students. I'm happy to report to you today, sir, that the response to this initiative has been overwhelming. The corporate community has proven to be genuine partners in the advancement of education in this country. The drive has raised over $500,000 in donations, including devices and internet connectivity. With their assistance, the ministry has now been able to put a device in the hands of over 90% of our public school students. 90%, over 90%. To date, of the 47,000 students in the public school, only 3,800 students still are without a device, and we are meeting that objective as we speak. These devices were given to students as a one-time offer to assist them with their learning. The ministry's goal is to digitize the entire public educational system, linking all districts, public schools, and all satellite offices with the ministry. We do this by creating a wide area network. And as I said, the 21st century demands of education, instruction, learning, and management, the educational requirements, of education, instruction, learning, and management demands it. It's simply not an option. I'm also happy to report that we have completed all schools and satellite offices on the island of New Providence, Eleuthera, and Grand Bahama. The remaining islands will be upgraded shortly, pending requisite approvals and the availability of funding. To date, we have spent $12 million, and another $10.3 million is needed to complete the remaining islands. So I also announced during October of last year, bandwidth at all schools was doubled to accommodate all students and teachers. Additionally, the bandwidth to the network was increased from 3G to 10G to accommodate all users. And in 2020, We engaged Cloud Carib in an Active Directory at a cost of $93,977.36. This directory will help organize the use of computers on the network, and it will be used to organize the ministry's hierarchy. Additionally, a technology task force was commissioned with the responsibility of the implementation of a comprehensive EMIS, Educational Management Information System, and an LMS, Learning Management System. Hurricane Dorian and now COVID-19 have shown us that an EMIS and an LMS are critical. Unfortunately, the execution of this initiative has been placed on hold due to financial constraints. In the interim, the company One-on-One is continuing to provide interim solution at a cost of $450,667.84. I turn now, Mr. Speaker, to schools management. Mr. Speaker, in the 2021 fiscal year, schools management saw a reduction in the number of teachers available for the start of the school year. Hurricane Dorian displaced students and teachers from Abaco and Grand Bahama who were initially posted temporarily in other schools. They were returned to Abaco and Grand Bahama as the opportunity arose. Prior to the pandemic, the ministry anticipated recruiting about 16 Cuban specialist teachers. But because of the circumstances and financial constraints, this could not be accommodated. Consequently, this left a void in these subject areas. However, I'm happy to report that last week, Friday, I had a conversation with the Cuban ambassador, and he advised me that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Cuba and the Ministry of Education come to an agreement to extend for an additional 2 years the 45 Cuban teachers that we have here in the Bahamas, going a very long way of helping us with those specialist areas, because those Cuban teachers, particularly, Mr. Speaker, meet some very critical needs, especially in special education and agriculture, especially. I turn now, sir, to the national exams, which much has been said and written about. As we know, the pandemic caused a delay and a postponement in some of our 2020 examinations. The BJC, the BGCSE, just by its completion, was for us a major accomplishment. Despite the challenge, the assessment and the testing and evaluation assessment division, under the incredible leadership of Ms. Evelyn Soy, able to complete the marking, grading, and release of results by the first week of December 2020. Grades were awarded showed a decrease when compared to 2019. But it is pleasing to note that 140 candidates received 5 or more A's. Of the 140, 38 received 8 A or more A's. Yes, Mr. Speaker, there was a decrease in candidature, with many students opting not to sit all of their subjects because some chose not to write the examinations and others had already entered tertiary institutions here and abroad. While some in the media and others sought to make an issue of this, I may wish to remind you that it is not unusual. Each year, hundreds of students, some 15 or so % of those that were previously registered to sit the exams, never show up. And that is not unique to the Bahamas. It is the situation elsewhere as well. I just hosted last week the Human Development Council of CARICOM. And the subject was the CXC exam. Same thing. Students, for any number of reasons, though they have registered because they moved already in college, or they have gotten a job, or something else, they just simply don't show up. 10, 15, 20% of them just never bothered to show up. Some defer sitting the exams to another year. Or again, any number of reasons. They don't feel prepared. So it's not anything unusual about it. The number of grades decreased when compared to 2019. There were 15,119 grades. This was about a 36% decrease over 2019. Of the total number of candidates who wrote the exam, as I indicated earlier, a respectable number had achieved great marking. It should be noted that the events of 2020 will affect performances of candidates in 21 and 22 examinations, and even beyond, because of circumstances beyond their control. However, the Ministry of Education is doing all it can to mitigate any negative fallout from the COVID-19 virus. As previously announced, the exams are scheduled to start on April 13th, but with most students just returning to face-to-face on February the 23rd, it is possible that the schedule may be adjusted to give our students more time if we find it necessary to prepare. I want to repeat that. As announced, the exams are scheduled to start on April the 13th. But with most students just returning to face-to-face on February the 23rd, it is possible that the schedule may be adjusted to give our students more time if we find it necessary to prepare. Therefore, Ministry asks parents and students to remain keenly alert for future announcements about the start and schedule of exams. In the meantime, students, please take this time to prepare as earnestly as you can, because the exams are coming, barring any unforeseen circumstances. Mr. Speaker, the officers of the Curriculum Division ensured that curriculum implementation and instruction for students were not interrupted despite the pandemic. While it did not necessitate change to the curriculum's content, it did require us to be innovative in the way the national curriculum was implemented. Officers, working along with district superintendent and teachers, developed national pacing guides for all grade levels in all grade disciplines. These guides outline both the topics to be taught and the term in a given term and the length of time that ought to be dedicated to each concept or content matter. The goal was to ensure greater standardization across the archipelago, no matter the instructional model that schools were using. This year, the ministry fully launched its learning management system, and just as they had done in the months prior to the virtual platform, curriculum officers guided teachers through the preparation and uploading of digital instructional kits designed to enhance instruction from pre-primary to 12th grade. I am therefore pleased to say today, Mr. Speaker, that more than 2,000 digital kits with lesson plans, videos, PowerPoint presentation, and activity sheets have been uploaded to the LMS and are being successfully utilized by teachers across the Bahamas. To date, more than 40,000 live lessons have been held virtually, reaching an approximately 60% of our students registered in the public schools. Unfortunately, not all of our students were able to access instructions virtually, either due to lack of devices, connectivity, electrical power, or other reasons. Therefore, the Curriculum Division mobilized its officers to produce hard copy instruction kits across all grade levels and disciplines. And as such, again, more than 3,000 kits were distributed to our schools throughout the Bahamas during term one, and in term two, curriculum officers prepared and uploaded additional kits so that school administrators would access and download information for students as was needed. As you would have seen, Mr. Speaker, there is concern about the grade level assessment test. When we came recently, the GLAT, the GLATS, was performing at approximately 58%. And target was that we would achieve 63% efficiency or proficiency in the GLAT. Happy to tell you that we have exceeded that objective. And we did so because of the dedication of our teachers and their commitment. We took it upon ourselves, and I can name one school in particular, Stephen Dillon. where the teachers and the principal got together and said that we are not going to continue to have less than optimal results in our reading. They began by bringing those students in before the 9 o'clock start hour, sir. I believe, before COVID, of course, if you were to go to Stephen Dillard, you would find that almost every single student was on the campus at 8 o'clock in the morning, going through their reading drills. Unheard of in a public school, especially in a school in that particular area. We realize that innovation is necessary to successfully implement the curriculum. As a result, our officers, especially our curriculum officers, have been undergoing continuous professional development. In August of last year, 2020, the Curriculum Division spearheaded the first annual Virtual Teacher Conference, offering 175 best practices sessions to educators across the country. Over the course of several months, 40 webinars have been offered by facilitators of the virtual school. Webinars which have been uploaded to the Ministry of Education website for easy and continued access. Ongoing curriculum reform saw officers in the Curriculum Division still working at various stages on the curriculum development cycle. We are pleased to report that by July of this year, 2021, we anticipate a newly revised curriculum in more than 10 disciplines in the public education system in the Bahamas, including language arts, social studies, science and computer studies at the primary level. At the secondary level, business studies, general science, biology, chemistry, computer studies, carpentry, construction, and the performing arts. Because we realize that the curriculum has to be relevant 21st century in which we live. We all can appreciate that transition from the traditional face-to-face instruction to a virtual instruction model has not been easy for some of our officers, teachers, students, and our parents. We realize that is why our special services section has been providing psychosocial support through telephone counseling sessions, via social media platforms, to help to make the transition a little easier. Additionally, town hall meeting was held, emphasizing topics such as coping skills during COVID-19, or internet safety, cyberbullying, and spiritual wellness. Come to the subject now in my remaining minutes, human resources. The Member of Parliament for Garden Hills talked about this a little bit earlier, Mr. Speaker, and he made his presentation. In order for us to function properly, efficiently, and effectively, we obviously need people, quality people, professional. Department of Education was given approval to appoint 249 persons to serve as teachers, craft instructors, and other staff base, cost of $5.4 million. Thus far, only 119 have been appointed at a cost of $2.89 million. This is because of financial constraints. These appointments include trained teachers, technical teachers, assistant teachers, guidance counselors, school psychologists, craft instructors. They have appointed, put in schools across the world. As is mentioned in our last year's midterm report, approval was granted for the extension of appointment on temporary month-to-month basis of 636 general service workers, teachers' aides, security officers, custodial and janitorial workers. And pending funding, those persons who perform their duties well, maintain acceptable punctuality and attendance levels, and have positive security vetting, would be recommended to permanent and pensionable establishments. You didn't hear that, so let me say it again. At last year's midterm report, approval was granted for the extension of appointment on temporary month-to-month terms of some 637 workers in the Ministry of Education, if they show themselves to be approved. And I've outlined the conditions. Keep your nose clean, be to work on time, do what you're supposed to do, show respect and manners and so on. They will be recommended to the permanent and pensionable establishment. This regularization exercise is presently underway. And the ministry's hardworking human resource team, led by Mr. Rita Clark and Ms. Dawn Culmer, with the support of the registry staff, are working in collaboration with the Ministry of Public Service to have these recommendations processed as quickly as possible. Yes, Mr. Gardner. Amid the challenges of the COVID-19, work on Human Resource Unit continued with these submissions to the Ministry of Public Service, including matters such as reemployment, confirmation, promotions, and other related exercises. Efforts will be made to further the regularization exercise to include persons appointed on temporary weekly terms, as well as persons. You asked me about this, member. You asked me about this, so I want you to hear this. Efforts will be made to further the regularization exercise to include persons on temporary weekly terms, as well as those persons employed in the library system and the school boards. So a total of some 1,248 persons. Another notable exercise being undertaken is the confirmation of school administrators. Such persons were recently appointed to act in administrative level positions such as senior mistresses and masters, principals, and assistant directors of education. Additionally, the review of the career paths of guidance counselors and security officers is complete. Consequently, the necessary approval and funding to recommend the advancement of such persons is being sought. Mr. Speaker, in the interest of time, let me just briefly say that the Department of Archives was severely impacted during COVID-19, as you would expect. And as a result, in preparing for staff to return, we expended some $15,000, almost $16,000, putting in plexiglass and hand sanitizing stations throughout all areas of the building. Of course, it's very important for us to make sure that in every department, including the Department of Archives, we have a surplus of cleaning supplies, and that these matters are provided in a timely manner and fashion for the various areas to ensure that we have a sanitized at all times, properly sanitized environment. With most staff working remotely, expenditure on items including air conditioning service, grounds maintenance, travel, printing, and duplication service, office supplies, and stationery and other contractual services naturally decreased compared to the previous fiscal year. I want to say a special thank you to our communications department, who has done a tremendous job under the leadership of Mr. Byron Thompson. He is the one who is responsible for the production today of these posters. I had indicated earlier that donations of some $500,000 had been received from corporate Bahamas individuals and others to help with our students in the purchase of donations for devices. Very proud of Mr. The young man, Mr. Longley, and his team at Leno for their help. I can tell you that Mr. Thompson, Byron, has taken our communications department to an absolutely another level. Just tremendous. He has made the feature of communications and sharing what is going on in the ministry with the wider public to be a preeminent objective of his. You all will know, and you see it all over TV right now. Ed Talk, seeing that? Ed Up, Ed Masterclass 101, Ed Tidbits, and Ed Table Talk, Unplugged, and other number of communication pieces coming out of the communication department. Additionally, all of our social media platforms are now very much up to date with very timely information in a way that now keeps the public easily informed. And we encourage the public to use those facilities for their information. They're perpetually available. These programs, of course, inform the public of the Ministry of Education's directives, initiatives, its progress, success, while showcasing the work and impact of school staff and reinforcing curriculum content for all students. Meanwhile, communications in the ministry recently received a boost with the launch of the free text notification update blast. This initiative allows education stakeholders throughout the country to receive frequent updates from the Ministry of Education. Expenditure on these messaging projects is approximately $34,000. Also, there's some more equipment, inclusive of hardware and software, to the tune of $75,000 that the ministry is now in the process of expending. And of course, you know, the community is always seeking that communication department to expand its human resources and welcome 2 new skilled members of its production staff. Many persons have asked, Mr. Speaker, about the infrastructure and about school repairs. You know, the onset of coronavirus has radically affected the demand placed upon our physical plant. Companies have been contracted to deep clean schools and offices, including our headquarters at University Boulevard. Plexiglass sneeze barriers, along with additional signage, had to be installed throughout our schools, satellite offices. Improvements coupled with our annual school repairs had to be carried out in the midst of emergency orders, lockdown, and the observation of safety protocols, as stipulated by the Ministry of Health. Mr. Speaker, due to COVID-19, the huge annual inspection of schools by the Ministry of Works for the development of scopes of works were delayed, which resulted in a domino effect in terms of scopes being prepared, contractors being selected, and contractors being mobilized. The lockdowns were especially restrictive as contractors were only able to work on a limited number of hours during the week. A shortage of funds for mobilization further delayed projects, some of which are now only being started. The majority of Family Island school repairs were carried out as usual, with the exception of those islands which may have been seeing a spike in their COVID numbers. I'm pleased to report that post-Dorian repairs at all schools in Grand Bahama are now complete. In Abaco, most Dorian school repairs are either complete or are nearing completion. This includes Patrick Bethel High and the Central Abaco Primary School. The Hopetown and Amy Roberts schools, which were devastated by Hurricane Dorian, will be completed in time for the opening of the 21-22 school year. The pandemic's effect on the economy cannot be understated here. The global slowdown resulting in tourism, our main economic driver, virtually came to a trickle. This, too, has resulted in a trickle-down effect on the disbursement of funds from the Ministry of Finance. In order to offset this, repair projects were prioritized so that schools would be able to open and function as much as possible this school year. That included projects essential to camp operations, such as roof work, electrical and plumbing works, as well as air conditioning works. Our budget this year totaled $25+ million. I'm pleased to report that despite awaiting second payment totaling $9.7 million from the ministry, school repairs and works progressed to the point where schools are once again able to open safely and welcome the majority of our students throughout the country. Just as a wrap up, sir, in terms of our expenditure, I just want to share with the Bahamian people, you, sir, and this honorable chamber, comparison of expenditure for the fiscal year 2019-20 versus 2020-21. Expenditure for the Ministry of Education mid-year increased by $195,000 from $55,211,679 in 2019 to $55,407,358 in 2021. Expenditure in the Department of Education mid-year decreased by $13,236,834 from $99,038,201 in 2019-20 to $85,801,367 in 2020. Expenditure Department of Archives mid-year also decreased by $22,233 from $309,843 2019-2020 to $287,610 2021. The revenue intake for the Ministry of Education mid-year also decreased by $191,877.32, from $258,211.96 to $66,334.64. Same thing with revenue in the Department of Archives, decreasing by $4,986.44, from $7,404.89 to $2,418.45. Mr. Speaker, on February 23rd, thousands of public school students on the Lutz, Abaco, Zuma, and New Providence returned face-to-face. For that, schools on the remaining family islands, including Grand Bahama, had already been in an in-person mode. From the beginning of this pandemic, government and the Ministry of Education made it clear that the in-person instructions of our students and the operation of our schools will be instructed and guided by public health and Ministry of Health officials. I stand here today to share our deepest appreciation and respect for the extraordinary guidance, direction, and help and support that the Ministry of Health, public health officials offered to our ministry, and especially the constant help and intervention of Dr. Philip Swan and his team to our ministry. In furtherance of the government of the Bahamas' emphasis on safety as a preeminent condition for the resumption of in-person classes, the Department of Education has published a strategic plan for the safe reopening of schools with the motto, safety first, education always. In pursuit of this objective, and in recognition of the role played by the Ministry of Health in determining acceptable standards for the resumption of classes, Ministry has been extremely dedicated in working, the Ministry of Health, that is, has been extremely dedicated in working with the Ministry of Education to ensure that the necessary guidelines and mandates are clear and are in place in schools for the resumption of in-person classes. We wish to express our great appreciation to the Chief Medical Officer, staff of the Ministry of Health, for their unswerving dedication to our efforts. Again, we acknowledge particularly the contribution of Dr. Philip Swan in the preparation of a joint Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education document, which outlines the specificity, the standards to be complied with, which empowers individual schools to develop the plans which are necessary for campus-specific compliance. At this time, the Ministry of Health is permitting only 50% of the school's total enrollment to be in attendance on each campus per day on the affected island, as we continue to emphasize safety first. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, it is essential for parents and guardians to cooperate with the Ministry of Education in ensuring that when their children leave the school campus each day, that they continue to practice the legally mandated protocols so that children do not return to schools and potentially infect their fellow students and others on campus. We do not wish our schools to become, quote, super spreader site, end quote. Joint Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health document has been widely distributed and is available on the Ministry of Education's Facebook page and website, and will be this week published in the newspaper. Mr. Speaker, this ministry and this department, I stated initially, seeing its share of challenges, difficulties, problems. And as a consequence, we've had to be innovative, strategic, and creative. I once again extend to the entire ministry team and the department team, under their respective leadership, for the extraordinary work dedication, commitment, and response to the demand for ongoing education that they have provided. In a moment such as this, I'm reminded of the words of the great prophet Isaiah, chapter 42, verse 1. When Israel was at its lowest, in the throes of the exile, the Lord, through Isaiah, spoke. And he said, "O Israel, fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I have called you by name. Thou art mine. When thou passest through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon you. For I am the Lord thy God, the Holy One of Israel, thy Savior." South Beach Ministry of Education supports this mid-year festival.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many. Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Central and South Eleuthera.
Mr. Speaker, once again, I'm thankful to the Almighty God for allowing me this privilege to stand in His honorable place to raise my voice on behalf of the good and resilient people of South and Central Eleuthera. I'm honored to be able to contribute to this budget debate on behalf of South and Central Eleuthera. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad. Psalms 1-6. Mr. Speaker, look how far we have come, knowing that this journey we are on never really ends. We can ask the people we serve. We have come to love our constituents. One of the most important questions ever: where do we go next? We must remember that God is very big, bigger than our best plans. God can and does work through our plans. Mr. Speaker, a writer once wrote, and I quote, "Always start with the hardest thing, because that is what worth the effort." Therefore, even if every difficulty we are going to start where we need in our hearts. Today, this caring government, Mr. Speaker, has delivered on its promises. I wish to firstly commend the government on its commitment of fiscal responsibility in providing sinking funds for the national debt and endeavoring to the contribution to bring our GDP at a ratio down. This can only be done by our benefits in the country's continuing future. While we must push towards fiscal responsibility, we in South and Central Eleuthera recognize that this F&M government has been able to increase business revenue flows and VAT collections during the third quarter, which assisted in the return of some 40+ million surplus in the third quarter of this year, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we must stay focused and determined towards the rebirth of our beloved Bahama land. South and Central Eleuthera would like to see the bed taxes coming in, the sinking fund for the national debt, by some way of taxation on the bed taxes from homes, rentals. Eleuthera is now experiencing an increase in air and sea arrivals since the global devastation of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Speaker, clearly Eleuthera is delivering real value in the travel market, where one look at the rich history of Eleuthera, the land of freedom, we must find our ways to expose it in a greater number of visitors, thus collecting revenue without raising taxes on the Bahamian people. Mr. Speaker, the Road Traffic Board in New Providence, of which I have humbly accepted the chairmanship, be commended for the job that they are doing during the long hours of ensuring that the applications are met with respect and a timely manner. Mr. Speaker, the New Providence Board's responsibilities for franchise in New Providence, while Road Traffic Board appointed by the local government, are responsible for Family Islands franchise. The board is set to assist the department and the ministry with improving the delivery of quality service to the motoring public. Since taking office, the board has met and made suggestions for recalls and in some cases, the cancellation of self-drive franchise that have not been renewed for more than 5 years. Such practices clog the system and hinders others from having the opportunity to purchase such businesses. Mr. Speaker, the board has therefore put into place a policy to begin to address this concern. Persons are therefore issued a grant letter within 90 days prior to getting the vehicle on the road. However, should the individual encounter difficulties in meeting the deadline, one can apply to the controller for a further 90 days extension. Such compassion. Truly, we are about the people we do care. Mr. Speaker, what we have also discovered is that we have a lot of locals who are purchasing vehicles, bringing into the country and licensing those vehicles on a private place. Some persons have up to 30 vehicles licensed in their names. And they're taking those cars without licensing, without authority from the Road Traffic Board, and licensing those vehicles in private places and renting those vehicles. I say to you, the general public, be very, very careful. It is illegal what they're doing. And to you who have the money to purchase these vehicles, come to Road Traffic. Come in, put your application in, and let's see what we can do for you. Do not get yourself in a problem. It is a fact, just Friday past, there was 29. One person had 29 vehicles. It's unfair. Be careful what you do. Mr. Speaker, persons with private schedule plates are reminded that the plates are to be placed on vehicles with a capacity of not less than 15 seaters. Individuals who are involved have been given an extension of 6 months to correct that practice. What does that mean, Mr. Speaker? Private scheduled vehicles are used for pickup and delivery of passengers. We are also discovered that individuals had those vehicles, those plates, and they're using some 6-seaters, some 8-seaters. You have been given an opportunity to come in and correct that. It needs to be corrected. We must be careful as to what we're doing out there. Mr. Speaker, I wish to employ each of you to be diligent in your efforts to ensure that you comply with this order. Mr. Speaker, indeed we begin where it matters most, in the heart. Road safety is an important focus of this Free National Movement government. Sadly, Mr. Speaker, Eleuthera has the highest recorded traffic deaths per capita in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We are looking to change that, Mr. Speaker. To my people, my constituents, be extremely careful. We are all aware that the Ministry of Transport and Local Government is leading the charge to improve the safety throughout the country. I am convinced that the efforts will be aware of the general public in reducing the number of fatalities on our streets. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the members for Carmichael, the member for Carmichael, the Right Honorable Desmond Bannister, and the Ministry of Works team, pardon me, for hearing the cry of the residents and visiting motorists of Eleuthera and Central and South Eleuthera and investing some $11 million of road work that is presently being carried out in Central and South Eleuthera. Mr. Speaker, I urge the motoring public of South and Central Eleuthera to exercise extreme caution when traveling on Queens Highway as the work is presently being conducted and the workers and equipment are visible. I ask that you please exercise extreme caution when traveling on the highway. Also, those pedestrians and cyclists, please be extremely cautious and careful when entering Queens Highway. The good people of South and Central Eleuthera, along with the visiting public, deserves to have passable roads that are safe. Carmichael, South and Central Eleuthera thanks you and the government for making sure that our Queens Highway is looked after. Mr. Speaker, also the communities in my constituency, which is Hatchet Bay, Governor's Harbor, Hatchet Bay, Governor's Harbor, and the portion of Roxon and Tarpon Bay in particular, the settlement roads now need some attention. And I'm happy to announce that the government have decided that they will be doing the roads in the community of Tarpon Bay on this first phase, and the second will be Governors, and the third will be Hatchet Bay. Thank you to the member for Carmichael, Prime Minister, and the Cabinet of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, I would like to make further mention of those street lights in my constituency that are in need of repairs in some areas. Some lights for safety reasons need to be installed. Mr. Speaker, I will take a pause for a second. I'd like to thank Mr. Dean, who is the new manager at BPL in South Eleuthera, who is trying his best to make a difference. You can see the differences in the corporation. But due to the fact of the shortage of staff and shortage of bucket trucks and equipment, they're not able to perform the way that they would like to. But Mr. Speaker, I can honestly say, I am pleased with the services that he's been trying to render to the people of Eleuthera. Residents of Eleuthera need to understand something. When there are power outages, it is something that's man-made. These things happen. I know it's confusing. But, Mr. Speaker, due to the old system that we're on, these things happen. And you must bear in mind that the lines that we're using in throughout the islands are aluminum lines. And so when it rains and when the wind blows and those lines cross, of course, we will have those outages. I know the residents in Deep Creek and Deep South in particular are tired of the power outages that they're experiencing down there. And, you know, it happens at the worst of times, like during the Christmas. They were down for quite a few hours. And so it really is becoming disturbing. But I hope and trust that we will find a solution soon and very soon to take care of that problem on the island of Eleuthera. Saying that I've spoken about the island of Eleuthera, there's something that many times we do not recognize as the people. The cost of energy in this country in the last few months, all of our light bills has been reduced under this current FNM government. And whether we want to recognize it or not, Mr. Speaker, this FNM government has invested more in BPL than any government in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas this 4 years. Mr. Speaker, Nasubians in particular can boast about the quality of service with their new generating plant has gone online, and today there is hardly any complaint out of New Province, Mr. Speaker. That's progress in the making. And so we must give honor where honor is due. Mr. Speaker, I would like to make further mention. Well, I spoke about my street lights, and so I'm just glancing over my notes. I generally don't speak from notes, but I'm trying to stay on cue today. Mr. Speaker, The Water and Sewage Corporation has completed in-house projects on the island of Eleuthera, South and Central, is happy to announce from this honorable place, that main water mains in German Village has been replaced and installed. Of new water lines in Freetown, Boulevard, and Central Eleuthera are complete. Upgrade to the Central Eleuthera water supply system, and also to the station at the Navy base. Realignment of 450,000 IG of storage tanks at the Navy base, Governor's Harbor, is completed. Upgrade of the Benamatara pumping system to improve levels of service and water quality is complete. Installation of a new automatic purging system for the Banks Road to reduce the shortage of water for the residents going over the hill and coming towards Palmetto Point. And also, Mr. Speaker, they have been able to reduce the amount of red water. And so that has been completed by the Water and Sewage Corporation. Mr. Speaker, I would request upon the good chairman, who has done remarkably well throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, who's one that we as the young people are proud of. The member from Long Island has done extremely well in making sure islands in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas that never had running water before today. Like the member from Michael said, when they turn the water on in Cook Island, oh yeah, under this F&M government, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, an island like Cat Island have been represented by an individual who sits in this house for many, many years. Today, Mr. Speaker, we will make sure that Cat Island have running water within the next few weeks, Mr. Speaker, under this caring F&M government, Mr. Speaker. There she goes. And so, Mr. Speaker, the residents of Cat Island, whenever you see that kid, that young man, as young as he is, right on the road, Adrian Gibson and his team from Water and Sewage, just say thank you, because you now will get what you deserve. Mr. Speaker, Free National Movement, this government, Mr. Speaker, we work from our heart, Mr. Speaker. It gives us a great pleasure to announce. For at this time, the hard-working chairman of Water and Sewage Corporation, the member for Long Island, must be thanked for his dedication and his team. And you know, we talk about the chairman, but the corporation is only as strong as the chairman. Yeah. And it is his leadership that has brought them where they are thus far. I say thank you to the chairman of Water and Sewage. But don't forget, Mr. Chairman, I have one more request. I need a water line from Tarpon Bay almost to Windermere Island, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. We have residents on Queens Highway in Eleuthera that are still having to truck water to their properties, even in Eleuthera. But because of the proximity and the way we're situated, they have to truck water in there. So Mr. John McCartney and the residents on that Queens Highway, I am appealing on your behalf to your chairman, to your government, to see that we can get at least that 4 or 5 miles of a pipe in there so we can take care of the rest of the residents in South Eleuthera. And we will be complete for now. Very good. Mr. Speaker, the Water and Sewage Corporation has opened up a new commercial office and storage compound in Governor's Harbor, which is providing better customer care and also for their staff. Mr. Speaker, there's much progress being made in my constituency. We are on an upward trend. Mr. Speaker, I get mixed up with this word myself. And maybe someone can help me with this. The project at the Navy base is called Falapaya. I think I got it. Mr. Speaker, just for the residents to know that this project is well on its way. It might seem to be a bit slow, but because of the way the world has changed, everything must be documented and everything must go in place. Mr. Speaker, the world has changed and the environmentalists are not allowing anyone to get away with anything. So what is happening, Mr. Speaker? It is really slowing down the progress of some of these developments in this country, and Eleuthera is one of them. What is the project? The hotel, It's a 20-suite boutique hotel with 15 standalone villas, an art gallery with an art studio for guests and employees, children and indoor and outdoor movie theaters, retail shops with local products, spa, wellness and fitness center, in and outdoor restaurants, pool, bar, and local music entertainment. Kindergarten for employees' children will also be provided in the approval. Yes, sir. Med Eleuthera Properties Limited, Governor's Harbor, is doing an exceptional job, including the Coco de Mama project with a new 18 new villa reception and building of a swimming pool and renovations of existing restaurants for more than $15 million investment. That project is moving slowly as well, but we're looking forward in the future, hopefully in the next 2 months, that project will be going forward. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to announce that we also have the potlatch property in the back of between Governors and Parliamentary Point, Mr. Speaker, with some $5 million plus are being invested on the renovations of the previous closed facility to offer self-catering hotel rooms, cottages for up to 40 guests, living vicinities, kitchen, bar, and restaurant. Mr. Speaker, I said at the beginning, this government is operating from the heart. Hold fast. This government promised the people, and yes, we are making life better for the people of South and Central Eleuthera. There is more. Unicorn Key Development. Governor's Harbor is a residential subdivision comprising cottages and townhouses with an investment of $5 million investment. Mr. Speaker, we are operating from the heart, like we promised. North Windermere Island Project, a privately owned residential project, is very well near completion. I am proud to announce that the local Bahamian contractors played a major role in that development. Mr. Speaker, there are more. The project in Bellingham Town Beach Resort is a 15-room accommodation, eco lodge with a restaurant and bar. $3 million plus will be soon re-resurrected, hopefully in the few coming months. So we've been in contact with them, and they're going to continue that project. And of course, Mr. Speaker, one particular project that has caused the world to stop, that went globally, Mr. Speaker, and it's called the Disney Project at Lighthouse Point in Bellingham, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the residents of Eleuthera have spoken on the 10th of May, 2017, and they continue to enjoy the freedom of speech that they've been blessed with. To God be all the glory. Mr. Speaker, I want all ears to hear, as the message of the good people of South and Central Eleuthera who elected me to represent them in this honorable place. As mandated by the people while the world watches, the people spoke and prayed it come to pass. Disney is inside Eleuthera. Please continue to prepare yourselves. The job openings will be needed and to need to be filled. South and Central Eleutherians first. Mr. Speaker, Disney, along with myself and the local committee, have held many number of zone meetings with local government officials, various organizations on the island, grouping religious leaders, and of course the general public at large, to present and discuss the EIA findings. Keeping the residents informed of the proposed project, Disney has promised, and is today doing as promised, remaining respectful to the government of the Bahamas and the people of Eleuthera, more so Central and South Eleuthera. Mr. Speaker, Disney will only begin construction after the environmental impact assessment is accepted by the concerns and by this concerned and caring government. Mr. Speaker, this project has met some of the most demanding requests in recent times. I beg of my caring government, once the EIA report has been approved, that this project be fast-tracked, as many lives are depending on. Sadly, we have lost pioneers in the vision of this. We have lost pioneers in the vision to the cold hands of death. May their souls rest in peace. And I speak about one person in particular, Mr. Charlie Stratton Strawn from Waterford. Charlie Strawn has passed on, but he has been a pioneer in pushing to see that this Disney project comes to fruition, and so he didn't get to see it. But Charlie, your dream lives on. Rest in peace. Mr. Speaker, we ask for a speedy conclusion that persons who remain will have the pleasure of seeing this project to come to completion. Mr. Speaker, we are the government operating from our heart. Jack's Bay. I visited that property. What an amazing property. Locals are presently employed. The vision is clear. Great things are happening at Jack's Bay for the local economy of South Lutheran. Mr. Speaker, while some say we are doing nothing, we are working. And soon and very soon, the groundswell will begin to manifest. And all will see. Eleuthera is on the move. However, life goes through changes, and there are changes that will be necessary to deal with the challenges. When I spoke on the previous budget, I mentioned sometime as I was mandated to do. I wish at this time to bring to the attention the self-help block that has been started at the Emma E. Cooper Primary School in North Palmetto Point by the PTA. And of course, my Minister of Education, I want to thank you and saying that block comes to fruition. Mr. Speaker, further, the Preston High School was in need of a new roof replacement for the past 5+ years. When it rains, it pours, Mr. Speaker. I'm asking the member for South Beach to please have that addressed if we can, and so that the teachers and the students can look forward to being able to relax and to educate in a dry facility whenever it rains. Mr. Speaker, cable TV for Bannermantown, as promised, the good people of Bannermantown are now asking for much more, please. I'm asking my government, the residents of Bannermantown, it's a small community, but they deserve to be able to stand here and watch their member of parliament speak on their behalf who cannot be here. And while they sit almost at the very end of Saudi Lutheran, it is a community that I have come to love. It's a very small community, closely knitted. It's home. And when you go there, you feel at home. And so, Mr. Speaker, Bannermantown basically has two problems: cable TV, and then we had a water problem. And so the good chairman from Water and Sewage made sure that water problem has been somewhat solved to a point. But there's still room for improvement. I want to see our plan is out there, but that's their choice. But if we can get cable TV in the Bannermantown area and east of Roxanne on the island, I think we will be pretty well set. So cable TV, you've been here a while. I've been behind you from I came in office, I called, I've been in your office. And for some reason, that project that just seemed not to be able to fly. But bear in mind, we're hopeful. Mr. Speaker, the people of South and Central needs to be provided with proper medical facilities on the island. Now, Mr. Speaker, the medical facilities can become very, very touchy. And I want to set the record straight while I have this opportunity. Hank Johnson came into office as a member of Parliament of South and Central. A mini hospital has been talked about for the island of Eleuthera for the last 10 years plus. Never one day did the mini hospital come that I ever tried to stop the progress of a mini hospital. Wouldn't do it. My 80+ mother lived there. My family lived there. And it would be disgraceful for someone like me to try to stop a project as such. As a matter of fact, why don't we get the record straight? There was never anything left in the capital of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas to build you a mini hospital, in case you don't know. There's nothing on record. Days before the last general election, they came in and they bought this piece of property, pushed it down, and right now, as we speak, thousands and thousands are owed to the contractor for pushing down land and clearing land that has not been paid for. But yet I get criticized every day as if I am trying to stop the mini hospital. Now let the record reflect today. The Progressive Labour Party left nothing on file for the mini hospital. And I said up openly and publicly. And so the bills are not paid. The Carey's Construction sit today waiting on payment.
You asked that, let me right in front of you.
Waiting on payment today.
Like that.
That company today is out of thousands of dollars because of a political promise.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador on a point of order.
The member speaks of that the PLP government did nothing in respect to the many hospital or clinic in South Lutra. If they did nothing, then how bills could be accrued? So I think he needs to understand what he's saying. What he's saying, right? That they left nothing in place. He would have known that plans have been drawn, properties were acquired. Properties were acquired for the purpose. Contracts were issued, right? And at the end of the day, something was done. Elections interrupted it. Now, what has happened since then? Nothing. This government has not advanced it, and it is not any answer for him. No answer for him, for his people, to blame the PLP for not having that clinic finished. It is for him to explain why it has not been finished. The government has been in power. They have been in office for the last 4 years. So what has happened? It is for them to explain. He continues the narrative. For 4 years, they've been on this what I call blame game. They've been brainstorming for the last 4 years instead of governing. Please engage your brain. Brainstorm instead of blame strong.
You're going beyond.
Oh, sorry, Mr.
Mr. Speaker. The honorable member from Canada has been in this honorable house for many, many years. I'm a newcomer here. And the honorable member knows procedure, Mr. Speaker. Anyone can draw up a plan. Anyone can pay someone a mobilization. But what did you leave in the cabinet, the conduct of the Bahamas to say to the Bahamian people, this is a project that was being approved by cabinet? There was nothing, Mr. Speaker. There was nothing.
Stand up. Explain it to him.
There was nothing. And guess what? I would stand to be corrected, sir. Mr. Speaker, it was a political promise that was made to my people and had them believing that this government stopped the project. It was never stopped. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, I recommended, myself and my committee recommended to the government to convert the Bahamas. It was going to run around 28 to 30 million after we did the research on it. It was going to run us around 28 to 36 million. We recommended that the mini hospital is too costly. The government purchased the workers' house. So we said the structure is fine. The engineers looked at it. And so they're looking at the workers' house because why? When you could find 6 to 7 million to give us a mini hospital, you can't find 36 million. And so there was nothing left, Mr. Speaker. Carey's Construction today. May I finish? May I finish?
Honorable member, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador on a point of order.
Okay.
State the point of order this time, honorable member.
The point of order, Mr. Speaker, is that the member continues to be inherently conflicting in whatever he's saying. He said plans were drawn, but anyone could put things on the paper. The question he has to answer for his people in South Lutra is why nothing has happened by them today. We were voted out. We left plans in place. He's suggesting what we left in place was nothing more than a political gimmick. Well, fine, that's what they said. Now tell the Bahamian people and those residents in South Lutra what this government has done to advance what he thinks he wants, right? And stop. I don't know who blame him for stopping it. What I know is that we know what their policy is. Their policy is stop, review, and cancel. And we say that's what happened. That is what has happened in respect to the clinic in South Lutra.
Mr. Speaker, I think I'm going to move on from that. But I'll leave it at this point, Mr. Speaker. I'll leave it at this point. Maybe It was approved by the cabinet of the Commonwealth of Bahamas, but sure wasn't left in that cabinet to be able to produce the Bahamian people. And you cannot go out there and get anything approved without being approved by cabinet.
Former cabinet.
Right, and so, Mr. Speaker, they came to the constituency, days prior to the election, had this big ceremony.
Honorable members, honorable members.
And so, it's the reality. Hank Johnson did not stop the mini hospital. As a matter of fact, I'm still pressing on my government to see that we get some medical facilities in South Central. No, but you all need to get the facts right. Let's get the facts right. But then you're going to go in my constituency and tell my residents I stopped the mini hospital. I have to set the record straight. And so that's all it was. It's a bunch of fake. Okay? And so Carey's Construction is left holding the bag. There's no money to pay the bills. Now, the whole island of Eleuthera never knew that. And so I can tell you all, this could be one campaign season. I ain't playing no games. Yeah. I'm telling the people the facts. Mr. Speaker.
Take the building.
Mr. Speaker, the people of South Central Eleuthera need to be provided the proper medical facilities on the island for the people of South Central. You will be pleased to know that the contract for the renovations of the Governor's Harbour Clinic has already been signed. Now let's get that straight. Let me stop there. See? We need things on record. The contract for that clinic has been signed and waiting for mobilization. That is the difference between this African government and the previous government. And why? An opportunity to print in the papers just a few weeks ago. Hank Johnson signed the contract. No, they can't go there. And so why they print nonsense in the media about Hank signing the contract for Governor Harbour Clinic? I didn't sign it, but I was there. And I'm happy that I was there. And this African government will see that that comes to division in short order. And that's the difference between them and us.
Careful, don't talk too bad about them, you know, you have
The Member of Parliament for Bamboo Town and the Ministry of Health, I would like to, on behalf of the good people of South Central, thank you in advance for the making the promises come alive. So we are grateful. As Eleuthera is restored to its glory days, the people return home to raise families and retire. Our medical emergencies, vehicles, and operations must be commended for the job that they continue to do on a daily basis in serving the lives of people. Mr. Speaker, I have to pause here for a second. I'm not boasting or bragging, Mr. Speaker, but I take my hat off to various individuals, and I wish I had the names to say, in Eleuthera, that have saw it fit to fit the island of Eleuthera with fire trucks, with ambulance vehicles. Mr. Speaker, the One Eleuthera Foundation has took it upon themselves to make sure the southern part of my district is equipped with ambulance services and firefighting equipment, Mr. Speaker. And I say to Mr. Ingram and his crew, thank you on behalf of the people of South and Central. Mr. Speaker, there's another group in the Palmetto Point area which called the Men of Faith. These men in this pandemic today get out of their beds 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, no matter what time you call them. They have 2 ambulance vehicles with state of the art, Mr. Speaker. State of the art in Central Eleuthera as we speak, Mr. Speaker. How they do it, I don't know. And I want to thank the residents who donate to this equipment. And those young men deserve to be commended. And I hope and trust that one day the government will see fit to just honor those men who leave their families for South and Central, who leave their families in the middle of the night, whatever time. Those guys are in those vehicles, and they take care of those vehicles like it belongs to them. Yeah. And those residents who donate for the upkeep and maintenance, and Mr. Speaker, I'm pressing on this government. Please, They operate a what they call it, non-profit organizations. Please, if only 1 or 2 grand per year, it would go a long way. Mr. Speaker, as I speak today, the men of faith presently have a fire truck, a pump truck, a ladder truck, a vehicle with jaws of life, and 2 fire trucks are being delivered within the matter, I think 1 should be in today and 1 next week. 2 more fire trucks will be delivered to the men of faith. So they have 3 fire trucks. This is what these gentlemen do for the people of Eleuthera. They need to be commended. And so I asked my government to try. Mrs. Biden, Saudi Eleuthera, I haven't forgotten you. I'm trying my best to get a fire truck further in the south. But presently, the One Eleuthera Foundation has been doing an extremely well job down inside there. And so we have to continue to come together to build our islands. And so that's who we are. Mr. Speaker, Roxanne has been one of the leading communities on the island of Eleuthera. Roxanne, it was what we call one of the capitals. Mr. Speaker, sad. Roxanne was left to be deteriorated for many, many years in many, many sectors. The airports was deteriorated. The roads were not the best. The government services were not the greatest. And of course, you all know where I'm heading now, right? The port of entry. And when you talk about the port of entry, you're talking about somewhere where our visitors come. And they say first impression is the everlasting impression. But today, Mr. Speaker, the residents of Roxanne, I had a word in here. Let me find that word, if I may. The residents of Roxanne, I can't seem to find it right now, but I'll find it a little later, are more than pleased and happy to know that in the not too distant future, that their mailboat service would be returned to Roxanne for the first time in about 15 years, Mr. Speaker, with a brand new facility built by this current government. Mr. Speaker, the dock in Roxanne is being constructed as we speak. It's about 85% completed, Mr. Speaker. Something that they longed for many, many years. It just doesn't serve the community of Roxanne. It serves the entire south, the southern part of the island, where the international vessels stopped going in there. Mailboats couldn't get in there because of the channel were closed, and now it's been dredged out and the dock looks wonderful. But I'm going to press on my government. There's a piece of property in the front of that dock that we need to purchase to make it complete. And so I want to say to the Minister of Works, Prime Minister, and you good gentlemen and ladies in the cabinet, on behalf of the people of South, thank you. It happened because you all made it happen. And so Roxanne can boast of a brand new docking facility. But I would not stop there. Now that the docking facility is in place, Roxanne is in desperate need of 2 port officers. Every day, I think I spoke about this before, there are thousands of revenue, thousands of dollars that can be collected from the port department in Saudi Eleuthera, as well as in Central Eleuthera. We need port officers. Mr. Speaker, this is the only way we're going to be able to collect the revenue for the Bahamas government. We have to place some officers in place to collect the revenue. And so, while we delay it, they're losing revenue. And I urge my government So let's try and fix that problem. Mr. Speaker, gotta go to Tarpon Bay. And I say this, you know that you all are special to me. The fishing docks in Tarpon Bay has been damaged by various hurricanes, wear and tear. It's now today in urgent need of repairs. As these docks serve as a livelihood for so many locals to feed their families. Tarpon Bay, OT Bay. Look at God. Your dock repair is in the final stages of drafting. And so, yes, we do care. Tarpon Bay dock should soon be repaired. And of course, the roadworks will be starting in Tarpon Bay in a matter of weeks. Hatchet Bay. Hatchet Bay. The member for Kalani and the Prime Minister responsible for land reform has announced in this Honorable House last week that the landlocked situation has been addressed. Those first-time property owners will be able to purchase property in their respective communities with all infrastructure in place. Very shortly, yes, young people, this government cares about you greatly. We want you to be recipients of property within your community. Hatchet Bay is landlocked in a more or less like a circle. The village is more closer to the sea and throughout by the Queens Highway, where they cannot, and so I continue, but please.
Chair recognizes the honorable member for Southern Shores.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the business of this House goes beyond the 1 o'clock hour today.
Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House be extended beyond the 1 p.m. hour. As many members are in favor, will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. The business of this House will be extended beyond the 1 p.m. hour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Sweeting Pond in Hatchet Bay is the home of a rare species of seahorses. I've had this conversation with the member from Marco City and the Minister of Agriculture to reserve the Sweeting Pond as a national park. The people of Hatchet Bay, thank you for your kind and quick action. Mr. Speaker, that pond is a jewel. And you got to see it. You literally can see the seahorses literally swimming in that pond. And also I visited that pond. There are octopus in there that I literally saw. And so it's very, very real. And so we need to continue to support the government in the protection of that pond. Yeah, I saw some octopus and I did see some. Yeah, I went to visit it. Mr. Speaker, the Governor's Harbour International Airport is in urgent need of repairs. Basically, it just needs an upgrade. The facility is a bit small, but we can get through that for now. We understand what's going on. But I'm urging my government to please, let's try and do some necessary repairs at the Governor's Harbour International Airport. It is a discomfort It is an eyesore to the traveling public when you visit that airport and the conditions there. Mr. Speaker, Roxanne International Airport needs some attention as well. Roxanne is in desperate need of a fire truck. Believe it or not, Roxanne International Airport is in need of firefighting equipment. Mr. Speaker, it is a danger traveling to and from these airports without proper firefighting equipment in place. I'm urging my government to look into this matter and try to bring some relief to the traveling public throughout the Roxanne International Airport. Also, Governor's Harbor and Roxanne Airstrip needs to be repaired. What we have discovered, some of the private jets that comes in, landing gears are getting damaged, tires are getting damaged. And so we need to pay some attention to those both airstrips, Governor's Harbor and Roxanne International. And I urge my government, I mean, this is not my area, but that airport in Nautilus was long overdue. That's Mr. Mackey, sorry, the member from Nautilus was assist, but we are one. And what we have found out now is that Governor's Harbor and Roxanne do not have hardly any international flights. So everything now goes into North. And so you find out that 50 to 55% of the traveling public are coming out of the North into Central and South. And so there's an urgency for those 3 airports only to get some attention. We need to do something about those airports. And we cannot play with it any longer. It is our what we call our breadwinner. And so I urge my government to pay some attention to that. Mr. Speaker, sadly, Bahamas Air does not fly to Governor's Harbor. Bahamas Air does not fly into Governor's Harbor. Now, who made that decision? I don't know. Why? I don't know. But Governor's Harbor deserves to have Bahamas Air coming in there like anywhere else. And I have contacted various places in the airline industry requesting that we do get some flights into Governor's Harbor by Bahamas Air. Not every resident wants to fly those small commuter aircraft. We got some people who would not leave home. They got to fly those small aircraft, please. By all means, let's see if we can get something, and at least Bahamas can make 2 flights in there a week. Do something. Mr. Speaker, you know, I got carried away with the mini hospital a few minutes ago. Roxanne's in desperate need of a medical facility. No ifs, ands, or buts. I have to go back. And we need to, my experience at Roxanne, when that accident took place a few months ago with the bus, where patients came in, visitors. They were sitting on the floor. And I'm not saying this to try to embarrass my government. That is what you meant there. We didn't have the proper facilities. How the doctors got through it? Dr. Smith, Dr. Cho came from the north. The gentleman came from the medical facility in Palmetto Point. All those doctors rushed in the south, and the nurses rushed in the south, because there were approximately 30 passengers on that bus. This is why it is so important that the island of Illuso get some medical attention, because of the island is beginning to expand. We have South Illuso alone. We have Princess Keys, Half Moon Key. Disney is coming. Cape Illuso is there. And then Jack's Bay. Just from Roxanne going south alone. Then you have the Windermere Island. Then you have the Cotton Bay Homes. We need proper medical in South Illuso, Mr. Speaker. And I'm not going to let it rest. I'm going to continue to push for it. I'm going to continue to ask for it. But I'm coming to the Honorable House. We need medical facilities in the island of Illuso. Mr. Dambutan, I'm urging on you, sir, as the minister, please give Illuso some attention with this medical thing. We are spending approximately $500,000 plus in one area alone just on airlifts. I have seen persons be in traffic accidents, get to Nassau 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock there on the next flight coming in. Sometimes $7,000, $8,000 for an ambulance to fly them out through the middle of the night. Another issue needs to be addressed. Families have to find this money through the middle of the night sometimes to fly out their loved ones. It's hard trenching. It's hard sometimes. Mr. Speaker, just recently, and I don't know how this is happening, and I'm looking for some answers. I had a resident in my constituency who came to New Providence for medical attention. That individual needed a scan. She didn't have the money, Mr. Speaker, and was sent back to Eleuthera without having that X-ray done. It's wrong. It's ungodly. It is unfair to Family Island residents to come to New Providence for medical attention and they can't get it, they got to fly back home because they don't have the funding. It's not right. It's not right. And I find that very offensive. And so what we did, a couple of us came together and we helped her to get that scan. She didn't have the funding. We got some old elderly folks in those islands, Mr. Speaker, who only collect that old age pension and they can save and save and save. They come to New Providence and they need a little extra, they can't get it. And they turn them down, Mr. Speaker, that shouldn't be, not in 2021 in this country. Family Islanders comes out of the island to New Providence, to go to the hospital, and they gotta sit there and sometimes they come in the emergency flights and sit there and they're not served. But I must say this, and despite all my criticism, I must say this, the services at Princess Margaret has improved, Mr. Speaker. It has improved. I was at Princess Margaret the other day. I was impressed. But we need to do something for the Family Islanders, Mr. Speaker. That's all I'm asking. And while I'm at it, I want to thank the medical team in this country who are doing, listen, to have this pandemic where we are in this country, the leader of this country, along with his cabinet, along with the medical team in this country, we have outshone the entire world. Small country with not the proper finances, we are examples with this pandemic. And so let's not blow our horn too quick. Let's be thankful that we had the right people in the right place at the right time. Mr. Speaker, I'll never forget this either. When I consulted with my constituents, and I spoke up boldly and I said to lock the island down because of, oh my God, Mr. Speaker. Man, no one said anything with the child of God. But I say to them today, look where you are today. Hadn't it been for a decision by the Bahamas government to make sure to slow the spread, Eleuthera today where we would have been today. And so now we are thankful that we did lock it down and that we have it under control at some point. Mr. Speaker, the docking facility in Hatchet Bay needs some attention. You have yacht boats inside there. Revenue is not being collected either. You go to Hatchet Bay Harbor right now, I can tell you, you probably got about 10 in and out. What 10? Do the rock song, same thing. Governor's office, same thing. It's revenue. Mr. Speaker, the world at large has suffered in recent times due to the devastating pandemic, COVID-19, that has found its way to our shores. While Eleuthera has suffered losses of life due to the pandemic, and families have suffered, we still have much to thank the Almighty God for. The constituents of Southern Central Eleuthera have received over $170,000 in food distributions from Hatchet Bay in the north to Betterman Town in the south. We are most grateful to those persons that would have donated financially, kind, and their time and effort. The government of the Bahamas this caring government has given over 1 million in assistance to the non-profit organization of Wanidutra to distribute food vouchers. The owners and friends of Tippy's Restaurant, Governor's Harbor, has conducted a door-to-door delivery meal for the last 6 to 7 months. Mr. Speaker, I commend Mr. David and Mr. Elliott and all of their staff who went in every day and cooked those hot meals. And they literally went throughout the constituency in Governor's Harbor, Fermanagh Point, Savannah Sons, I think JC as well. And they gave those meals out. They spent well over $100,000 just preparing meals for those months. I want to thank them publicly. Speaker, also, Father Miller and his team in South, who had their program going as well. Just about every church or every organization throughout the constituency were doing something to help people. I want to thank all you all. I dare not forget the owners and operators of Buccaneer Club, who made it available, made funding available for their staff to make sure that they went to the food store and purchased every other week. Michelle Johnson, you and Karen and Ms. Johnson, thank you. I really appreciate it. Mr. Speaker, I stand here today in honor of the resilient spirit of the people on the island of freedom. My definition of resilience is when your dream is being attacked, when your source of earning a living appears to be dwindling due to unemployment or the forces of greed and selfishness, when it appears that the access to justice is out of reach, a flame of hope that governs the warrior spirit in all of us fights back. Mr. Speaker, it is the strength of our faith, the belief in our dream, that strengthens the warrior in us to remain focused and relentless. Pursue the enemy of our dreams. There is a family in Eleuthera, Mr. Speaker, whose faith has been tested for more than 23 years, Mr. Speaker. And they've been tested by some of the rich and powerful who apparently assumed that the laws of this Bahama land does not apply to them. Well, Mr. Speaker, I want them to know that the long arm of the law will reach you too. Mr. Speaker, I have just 1 or 2 minutes quick. I'm going to go over quick. And I'm going to appeal on behalf of some young people who are non-Bahamians, who were born in this country, grew up in this country, and today they are stateless. No fault of their own. And some of them want to travel to New Providence to come to seek medical attention or to come and check on their immigration status or whatever it may be. But because of the conditions that they're under, young men, young women, adults, mostly, I must say, mostly Haitian nationals who are not able to move freely throughout this country. No fault of their own. We need to fix that. Somewhere, somehow, allow them. I mean, it's like they can't go to the bank. They can't have a bank account. They cannot work properly. Their lives are stagnant. And young men and young women who are crying every day for help. They can't go nor come, Mr. Speaker. Not in 2021. We need to fix that. We need to pay some attention, and this is happening throughout the entire Bahamas, not just in my constituency. No fault of their own. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for Southern Shore, Mr. Speaker, for the dedication service that your staff has been rendering in assistance in social services to the people of the. How much time we got left? Mr. Speaker, social services need to be commended for the services they've been rendering to the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and my constituency as well. Mr. Speaker, may I have just a few more seconds?
Yes, you could have 2 minutes.
Okay, and so, Mr. Speaker, while I'm at it, the only problem that I have right now is a small housing program that needs to be come to division. And so I'm going to speed along here. I have to cut that. Mr. Speaker, maybe it is time to give thanks for the things for which we have and hope to get. Recognizing that all fall short of the glory of God, I am thankful. Just before I take my seat, Mr. Speaker, I must give thanks to the police, defense force, customs, immigration, prison, and medical personnel. I must also mention of those healthcare workers on the front line here on the island of Eleuthera. They may be, and they should be commended. Job well done. Mr. Speaker, I must make mention and commend all of those security screeners at the Governor's Harbor International, at screeners from the airports in Roxanne that came out recently and ensured that safety was a priority for the traveling public at our port of entry. Those persons must be commended. I want you to know that this caring government took note of your decision and willingness to go the extra mile to ensure that persons traveling during those times did in a safe manner. And there was no compromise. I understand that you would have left your families either in the mornings, at times and had a longer travel, and from work in the evening to get back, sometimes taking a flight from one airport to another to accommodate the person. Mr. Speaker, we have the caring government, my government, to say those persons, we love you, we thank you for all you've done, continue to do well, but more so. God always recognizes the effort of persons when you work from the heart. Please know that this caring government will do its part to all government departments and civil servants on the island of Eleuthera. As your member of Parliament, I commend you for a job well done. I know that sometimes your circumstances are not what you would want it then to be, but recognizing that you are called to serve, you perform to the best of your ability. I want you to know that this caring government, cool workers from the heart, appreciate all your efforts, and we are forever grateful. There are times when I fall short, as we all fall short. God is a good God. The Bible tells us that the good name is preferred over all the riches. A good name attracts opportunity. This African government is well on its way to restoring the good name of the Bahamas. Painful and unpopular it may be at times. It requires that you stand up for the truth and justice whenever you have to choose between protecting our political war friends and families. Mr. Speaker, we have reached a time in our development when we must choose whether we will fulfill the vision of God and our founding fathers have for us, which is to be grateful. Little countries in the world, it cannot be a mistake that the people of my island and the island of freedom is positioned to be the beacon of hope, the opportunity of downtrodden. We are on our way up. As long as we continue to serve with integrity, I must publicly thank those hardworking officers of the constituency of Southern Central Eleuthera, recognizing that I have represented from Hatchie Bay in the north to Bettermantown in the south. While I would love to visit all persons, most days and on all occasions, however, it is just not possible. But know that you are always in my prayers and thoughts. To all of those families who would have lost loved ones recently, I would like to, on behalf of myself and express my deepest sympathy. And it's in my prayer that God will continue to strengthen you as you go from day to day and give into your courage you need to overcome. The following families: Reverend Godfrey Bethel, Don Ward, Kent family, Roxanne, Bain family, Knowles family, the Gardens family, Tarpon Bay. May their souls rest in peace. Mr. Speaker, Southern Central supports this bill. I rest.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. As many. Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Fort Charlotte. The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Southern Shores.
Mr. Speaker, in light of the hour, I want to move that the House suspends for the luncheon break and return at 3 p.m. today's date.
Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House suspend until 3 p.m. this afternoon. As many members that are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. The business of this House stands suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon.